Hello, friends. My name is Eric Cloward, and welcome to the Stoic Coffee Break. Do you struggle with achieving your goals? Do you often get overwhelmed and quit before you start? Well, in this week's episode, I want to talk about how you can change your mindset to work through the blocks that are keeping you from achieving the goals that you want and living the life that you deserve. The important thing about a problem is not its solution, but the strength we gain in finding the solution. Seneca. So one of the hardest things for me when I'm trying to achieve certain goals is that I will often sit down, have a good view of what it is I want to accomplish, but I will project out too far into the future and think of all the things that could go wrong. I look at the hard work ahead and all the obstacles I'll have to achieve, and this creates a feeling of being overwhelmed and anxiety, which often stops me from actually getting started, leading to lots of procrastination, distraction, and even catastrophizing over future failures that may not actually ever happen. So this morning I sat down and started journaling about this because I was really struggling. And I decided to examine where I wasn't or how I wasn't applying all the tools that I discuss here on my podcast with you each week. I know that it may seem that I have everything all together, but I'm just as human as you are. And I struggle with a lot of the same things that you struggle with. So in this podcast, like I've said before, is my way of sharing the things that I've learned and figuring out how to apply Stoic principles as well as modern wisdom in my own life and share it with you and hope that you find it useful as well. So the first thing I want to talk about is just the fact that we get stuck in our comfort zones. And it's easy to get stuck while trying to achieve our goals. We can imagine the future that we would like to see and the future that we want to have for ourselves, but we'll think about how hard it is to get there and often don't take any action. Worse, we often self-sabotage ourselves and do things that actually make it even more challenging for us in the long run. We do this because, in a paradoxical way, it keeps us safe. If we don't take the steps needed because we're afraid, then we have an excuse of why we failed. We blame it on anxiety, we blame it on lack of skills, or maybe on external events. Failing to act leads to a certain outcome, and we like certainty, even if that outcome is not even getting started or failing at what we're trying to do. Dreaming big feels good because we can imagine how great our life will be once we actually get there. But to actually go out and take action stretches us and puts us outside of that comfort zone. So we will retreat to what we know is safe and often end up doing nothing and don't take any steps towards accomplishing the things that we actually desire. The worst part is then we beat up on ourselves and we feel guilty because we feel like there's something wrong with us. We blame ourselves for being lazy or unmotivated or not wanting it enough. I hear that all the time. We might comfort ourselves by even convincing ourselves that we didn't really want it in the first place. And this is why so many of us never accomplish what we want. So here are some ideas that I hope you'll consider when you're setting goals and trying to decide what you want to accomplish, and some things you can do to actually take action towards accomplishing your goals. So the first and most important thing when you're setting goals is to choose goals not for their outcome, but for the person that you will become in trying to achieve that goal. So Epictetus explains it really nicely. He says, "Every difficulty in life presents us with an opportunity to turn inward and to invoke our inner resources. The trials we endure can and should introduce us to our strengths. Prudent people look beyond the incident itself and seek to form the habit of putting it to good use. On the occasion of an accidental event, don't just react in a haphazard fashion. Remember to turn inward and ask what resources you have for dealing with it. Dig deeply. You possess strengths you might not realize you have. Find the right one. Use it." So like I was saying, the most important part about trying to achieve goals is that those goals shouldn't be sought after just for the outcome that we want, but for the person that we become in trying to achieve those goals. You need to ask yourself, will it help you grow into the kind of person you want to be? Will you step out of your comfort zone? Will you become wiser and kinder and more courageous and more disciplined? In short, will it improve your character? A goal should be pursued because of the type of person it will change you into, not just for the external reward. Often, we work on goals outside of ourselves to distract us from our inner work. We get so busy doing external things that we ignore or don't pay attention to what's going on inside of us. And this is why so many people work so hard to get something that they thought that they wanted, and they don't find the satisfaction that they thought would come in achieving that goal. But when you focus on the goal as a means to change and grow, then achieving the goal is an actual side benefit. The change within you is lasting and ultimately more fulfilling. And even if you fail, you will have grown. And by choosing goals where the primary desire is to create change in yourselves, it makes it easier to stick to when things get tough. An exercise that you can do, which can also be incredibly helpful so that you don't find that dissatisfaction at the end of achieving your goal, is to imagine the everyday future. And what I mean by this is that when you're striving towards a goal, let's say, for example, you want to get a new job and you have this position in mind and you're striving towards it. Are you doing it because you want the position? Do you want the money? Is it a boost to your ego? You need to think about, what will your daily life be like if you get that job? Will you be stuck in meetings all day? And maybe that's something that you don't want. Are the things you're going to be doing things that you really want to do and you're going to enjoy? This will help you so that if you do achieve your goal, that you're not dissatisfied with it once you actually get there. There are plenty of people who don't take these things into account. And so when they actually achieve their goal, they find out that they're more unhappy than they were before they achieved it. The next idea is that we make sure that when we come upon an obstacle, that we truly understand the problem. There's a great quote by Brianna Wiest, which I like. It says, completely understanding the problem is the same thing as knowing the solution. Often we fail to accomplish to get what we want because we don't really understand the problems that we're actually trying to solve. When you run into obstacles on your path, before making a decision, do your best to truly understand the problem that you're facing rather than just taking the first idea or solution that comes to mind. If you deeply understand the issue, then solutions and opportunities will easily become more apparent. At the very least, you'll have a clearer idea if there might be something that you are just missing and that you need to learn about. This is where taking time to plan helps you to break things down into smaller pieces, allowing you to examine them more closely and to understand what it will take to actually solve the problems you're facing. It also reduces anxiety because you remove unknown aspects to your obstacles. Which brings us to our next step, which is planning small steps. And I'll start this with a great quote from Epictetus. He says, "Show me one person who cares how they act, someone for whom success is less important than the manner in which it is achieved, who pays attention to the process of planning, not just the outcome." It's those small, consistent steps that will move you towards what you're trying to accomplish, not the big, grandiose moments that you might imagine are the tipping point to bringing you success. They don't happen without a lot of work beforehand. Once you have that vision of what you want to accomplish, start by working backwards. What needs to be in place before you achieve that end goal? What steps were before that? And what was before that? Do this enough times and you will have the steps you need to actually make progress on your goals. This is why planning is so important, which is something that I struggle with. And part of my struggle comes from seeing where I want to go and often not knowing for sure how to get there. I have moments where I can see the whole picture and have this vision of what it is I want to accomplish. But then I'll feel anxious about the work that I'll have to put in to actually accomplish my dreams. So something I've been working on is trying to focus on taking one step each day towards the goal that I want to accomplish and being very, very focused and present with that action. This helps me from basically it stops me from worrying about anything in the future. By taking it step by step, then those future things are something that I don't have to worry about nearly as much, and I try to keep them out of my mind. It's like the old saying goes, how do you eat a whale? One bite at a time. This next step is more of a mindset shift, and it's to consider what you get to do. And what I mean by that is that rather than looking at the steps and the challenges that are ahead of you as things that you have to do in order to reach your goal, look at them as things that you get to do in order to reach your goal. The growth that's going to happen from that, the things that you will learn from that. For example, I use this when I think about going to the gym. I don't think about going to the gym and go, oh man, I'm going to have to lift this heavy weight. I'm going to take this time and I'm going to have to travel over there. I look at it as I get to go to the gym and I get to get stronger and make my body more into what it wants, and I get healthier and I get more fit. Each step you take, each task you accomplish is just one more thing to get you closer to your destination. By adopting the "this is what I get to do" mindset, it helps change it to one from duty and struggle to gratitude and appreciation. Now, the next one is something that I talk about here all the time, and that is to welcome failure. So, as I've said plenty of times before, failure is just missed expectations. We are the ones that set the parameters of what we consider a success or a failure, and when we don't reach our expectations, we call it a failure. But the funny thing is that we're the ones that are in charge of that. We're the ones who decide what is a success or a failure. When we don't meet our expectations, there are a few things that we can do. Consider that your expectations might be unrealistic. Maybe you thought you'd get more done by a certain date. Maybe you thought you'd master something quicker, or that you'd be better at something than you actually are. It is within your power to change those expectations. And in some cases, you're probably better off just getting rid of those expectations. Doing so can allow you to have a more realistic outlook on what you're actually dealing with, making it easier to deal with, and then you can make choices that are more appropriate to the challenge you have, rather than just the expectations that you had of how things should be. The next thing about failure is these are opportunities to learn. Learn from your failures. Anything that didn't work out the way that you want is just another data point. And look at it with curiosity. Why did your expectations not meet reality? Did you make some assumptions that were overly optimistic? Were there factors that you didn't consider? What is the data pointing to? It could be that it's telling you to change direction or consider new factors or ideas that in the long run might be the key to you actually succeeding. More than anything, it deepens your understanding of the problems you're trying to solve. Now, this last thing is something that I talk about this all the time on my podcast, and that there are no problems, only choices. And what I mean by that is that anytime we come into an obstacle, rather than looking at it as a problem, look at it as an opportunity to make a choice. Shifting your perspective on these types of things gives you much more control over the situation. Because remember, Epictetus taught us that choices are one of the things that are within our power. So when you run into a problem, start asking yourself, what are my options? What have others done to solve this problem? There's usually more than one solution. So think about what other options you may not have considered. Most problems we're trying to solve aren't truly unique. So try to find out how others have solved these problems. Once you have a list of options, start to look at where those options might take you. Logically walk them down the path and see where each choice might actually end up. Also, don't be afraid to take a path where you'll end up learning something new. We all want to accomplish something useful in our lives. We want to make an impact on the world, but so often we end up being our own worst enemy. I hope that the tips that I've shared today can help you to overcome some of the blocks that are keeping you from accomplishing your goals and living the life that you want to. The most important one, again, is to make sure that the goals that you set are ones not just for the outcome that you're going to get, but for the type of person that you will become in achieving those goals, or at least trying to achieve those goals. Doing so will help you to stick with it when things are tougher. You'll be able to deal with failure better. Also, if you don't actually end up achieving your goal, then the growth and strength that you will have gotten from even trying to attempt the goal will be well worth it. And for me, that kind of growth is a goal worth pursuing. And that's the end of this week's Stoic Coffee Break. As always, be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and thanks for listening. Also, if you're not following me on social media, I would really appreciate if you would. You can find me on Instagram and Threads at stoic.coffee, and you can find me on Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube at Stoic Coffee, all one word. Also, like I said, I'm putting my videos up on YouTube, so if you want to come see what I look like, go ahead to my channel and subscribe, and you can see if my face matches my voice.